name is Michael, and today I'm going to tell you a story that began with what looked like a normal family dinner but turned into the night that flipped my life upside down. Imagine being called somewhere by people who claim to be your family, only to realize the whole thing was a setup meant to humiliate you. That's what happened to me, and trust me, what followed is something you won't forget. But before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Every single comment keeps me motivated to share stories this raw and real. I was 33 years old, living in Fairhaven, Montana, and I honestly believed my wife Lily's family at least tolerated me. That illusion shattered on a Wednesday night when Lily said her parents wanted a small get-together. She didn't ask me directly to come. She said it like breathing, as if showing up was the unspoken rule. The place was Ocean View Terrace, one of those downtown restaurants where valet drivers grab your keys before you've even shut off the engine. Inside, every waiter wore black ties and carried themselves like lawyers instead of servers. I wore a gray jacket and pressed shirt, an outfit chosen carefully because I knew Victoria Hale, my mother-in-law, wouldn't have a chance to sneer at me over it. I gave the host my name. "Michael," I said, steady and polite. He frowned, flipping pages on the reservation list. "Sorry, sir, nothing under that name." "Try Hale," I added. "That's my father-in-law's name." His fingers stopped. "Yes, party of 6 for Richard Hale. They're already seated." Already seated? That hit like a cold slap. He pointed, and there they were in a booth by the window. Lily, her parents, and her sisters, Grace and Nicole, sipping wine, laughing like a picture-perfect advertisement for Harmony. Then I heard her. "Michael." Victoria stood right behind me, arms folded, eyes gleaming like she'd been waiting for this exact scene. She looked me over, tilting her head with a restrained sneer. "Oh, Michael," she said in her polished, superior tone. "You didn't think you were actually invited, did you?" At first I thought maybe she was joking, but the look in her eyes told me this was no joke. Behind her, Lily didn't even glance up. She kept circling her finger in her champagne flute as if the bubbles were more interesting than her own husband. Grace and Nicole had noticed me too, hiding their smirks behind delicate glassware. The poor waiter shifted from foot to foot, clearly wishing he could vanish. Victoria leaned close, her perfume heavy and expensive. "This isn't really your crowd. There's a sports bar down the street. You'd feel more at home there." I gripped the podium so tight my knuckles whitened. I'd tolerated her sharp jabs for years, at holidays, at birthdays, even on my ceremony day when she'd muttered, "Didn't think you could pull this off." I laughed it off then, but this was no slip of the tongue. This was a staged theater. She wanted to cut me down publicly. And Lily, she was just going to let it happen. For a moment, anger didn't come. Instead, something else settled in me. A cold, precise clarity. They thought I was powerless. They thought they'd written the script. But I had a card in my pocket they didn't know about. I straightened my jacket, turned to the host, and spoke calmly. "Do me a favor. Tell Daniel Brooks I'm here. He'll know me." Victoria gave a forced chuckle, folding her arms tighter. "Daniel Brooks? The owner?" I met her stare without blinking. "That's right. Tell him Michael's out front." The host hesitated, caught between us. Victoria shook her head in disbelief. "You can't be serious. Do you have any idea who dines here? Do you know what this place represents?" I leaned closer, voice tone, "Eddie. I don't just know. I helped build it, long before you even heard of it." For the first time, her smile faltered. Lily still didn't speak. Her glass turned slowly in her hand, as though she could stir herself out of the moment. And I knew then, this night wasn't going to end the way they planned. Victoria's lips parted like she wanted to cut me down, but nothing came. The host reappeared, looking nervous. "Mr. Brooks is on his way out." Her arms dropped to her sides. She spun toward Lily. "What is he talking about?" Lily stayed frozen, eyes on her glass. I just smiled, because the best part was seconds away. The doors swung open. Out walked Daniel Brooks, mid-50s, shoulders broad, gray streaking his hair. His eyes swept the lobby, then landed on me. Instantly, his face lit up. "Michael Carter," he boomed, grinning like I was his favorite person alive. He strode over, wrapping me in a half-hug, half-backslap that nearly knocked the air from my chest. "Daniel," I said, letting just a flicker of surprise show. "Didn't expect you yourself." "For you? Always," he laughed. "Last time I saw you, we were buried in drywall dust, arguing over cocktail menus." And I was right. I smirked. "You were," he admitted. "That drink's been our bestseller 4 years straight. Ask anyone." Behind us, the host froze. Victoria stared like her brain couldn't process it. Over her shoulder, Lily finally lifted her head. No more pretending. Her lips parted, caught between shock and guilt. Daniel turned to the host. "Get this man whatever he wants. Table, drinks, the whole menu if he's hungry." Victoria's face twitched. "Wait a minute." Daniel noticed her for the first time. "Oh, were you with Michael?" "She's my mother-in-law," I answered before she could spin it. "Ah," he said knowingly. "I booked under my husband's name," Victoria blurted. "We weren't expecting—" Daniel cut her clean. "You've got a table, and Michael's with you. He's not standing around like an outsider. Not in my house." Her eyes went wide. "I'll bring another chair," he told the host, "or bump into the booth next to you. Either way, Michael gets a seat. Non-negotiable." Victoria opened her mouth again, then snapped it shut. Daniel leaned closer. "Come by later. I'll introduce you to the new hires from the Anderson deal. Remember that wine concept we tested in Silvergate? That manager's here now." "Glad to hear it," I said. "And if you ever want back in, you've got a spot with me. Always." We spoke long enough for every ear at their table to catch phrases like, "launched 3 spots together," "saved my payroll more than once," and "this man's family." Then Daniel clapped me on the shoulder. "Enjoy dinner." As he walked off, the host turned, rattled. "Mr. Carter, shall I show you to your table?" Victoria looked ready to faint. "Sure," I said casually, as if I had stayed up all night. We walked toward their booth. Lily glanced at me, guilt carved into her face. Nicole started to speak, then bit her tongue. Grace's expression hovered between curiosity and fear. Victoria dropped into her seat like a puppet with cut strings. I slid in, napkin folded neatly on my lap. For the first time that night, I wasn't just Lily's husband. I was the man with leverage. Marcus hadn't even made it back to the kitchen before staff rushed over, adding a chair, resetting silver, unfolding napkins with a flourish like I was royalty. It was intentional. Daniel wanted everyone to see. Victoria recoiled each time someone called me Mr. Carter. The waiter appeared. "Would you like to see the reserve list, sir?" "Yes," I said smoothly. "Bring me the limited page. Daniel always keeps a bottle or 2 for me." The waiter bowed before hurrying off. Victoria coughed into her drink, forcing a smile so stiff it hurt to watch. "Well," she said too brightly, "isn't this a surprise?" "Sure is," I said, mirroring her tone. She tried again. "Lily didn't think you'd be interested. This isn't really your kind of place." Lily just stared at the tablecloth, tracing invisible lines. Nicole broke the silence. "So, Michael, you and Daniel really know each other that well?" "I ran the bar at his first opening," I said. "Helped train the staff. When he expanded, I drafted his first investment proposal." Grace blinked. "Wait, so you're actually in the business?" "Was," I said. "Still do some hospitality advice now and then." I smiled faintly, because I knew what was coming next. Victoria tried to cut me down with a sharp line. "Well, pouring drinks and advising on business aren't the same thing." I smiled at her calmly. "Exactly. And that's why I billed him a high consulting fee for securing the permit." Her hand froze midair. Lily's champagne flute rattled softly as she set it down. I leaned back, adding, "And I didn't even charge for the introductions I made. That would have been cheap." Victoria forced a chuckle, though her eyes stayed hard. Some people just fall into the right circles. Fall into them? I tilted my head. No. I bled for every single contact I've built. Not everyone gets born with a Rolodex handed down like a family heirloom. She narrowed her eyes. And some of us still understand the weight of legacy. Legacy is fine, I replied evenly, but it matters where the money to keep it alive comes from. Lily recoiled slightly. Nicole's face showed confusion. What are you talking about? I sipped my water slowly before answering. Victoria, remember when your son-in-law's tech consultancy was about to collapse? 10 days from defaulting? Her back went stiff. That's not relevant. It is when I was the one who covered it, I said, folding my napkin. Richard would have been finished. I stepped in, quiet and clean, no parade. Both Nicole and Grace turned their attention toward our mother. Victoria's expression locked into place, tense and brittle. That's old news, she muttered. Funny, I said, because I still get semi-annual updates on that stake. Lily finally looked up, her eyes wide, not angry, not afraid, but realizing how much she hadn't known. The air around the table grew heavy. Anyway, I said, easing back, glad to be here. Family meals are what keep people close, right? The waiter appeared with a bottle of rare French vintage, one Daniel used to keep hidden in the back, and began pouring. Victoria looked ready to hurl her drink at the wall. Under her breath, she started, People from the service industry shouldn't... I cut in softly. Careful, Victoria. It's people like me who make nights like this possible. Without us, there is no table, no wine, no celebration. She clamped her mouth shut. Lily dropped her gaze again, cheeks warm with shame. She had underestimated me for years, letting her mother dictate, thinking I'd stay silent. Not anymore. Silence wrapped around the table like fog. Grace and Nicole glanced nervously between me and their mother, unsure who held the reins now. Victoria gripped her polished fork as though it had wronged her. I smiled. Not superior, not mocking. Just honest. You know, Victoria, I never mentioned any of this before. Not the checks I wrote. Not the favors. Not the time I pulled this family out of the fire. Her lips tightened into a thin line. And yet, here you sit. Exactly, I said. Here we are. I leaned forward. And maybe it's time the truth got aired out. Victoria rolled her eyes like she was already bored. Lily stayed still, offering no objection. I didn't marry into wealth, I said firmly. I married into your family. That's the same thing, she muttered. No, I snapped, sharper now. It's not. Because everything I have came from me. Every dollar, every deal. Nicole shifted. We know you've got a business. You think I run some bar for pocket change? I cut in. I built my first company out of a storage unit with $300 saved from construction jobs. I invested in 5 startups, sold 2, bought my first property at 28. Everything I own, I built with my own hands. Victoria scoffed. And that's supposed to make you special? No, I said. It makes me real. I turned to Lily. Do you remember when you wanted to open that studio in the Millstone district? You were terrified the bank would deny your loan. She gave the faintest nod. You never got approved. Because you didn't need it. I covered every penny. And I told you to tell people it came from a private lender so you could hold your head high. Nicole's jaw dropped. I wrote the business plan, met the contractor, reviewed every lease, but I never asked for credit, because it wasn't about me. Then I looked back at Victoria. Same with Richard's firm. He was drowning. You know it. I gave him the money, and I didn't breathe a word. Victoria shook her head. That's not... And Grace's tuition gap, I added. Remember the mysterious donor you all praised in the family chat? That was me. Lily's head snapped toward me, her eyes wide. That was you? I nodded. Even Daniel Brooks, lingering nearby, called out, Michael here saved my payroll last year when supplies ran late. Without him, half my staff would have gone unpaid. The entire table froze. "You all talk like I was lucky Lily chose me," I said. "Like I tricked my way in. But it's the opposite." Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came. "I didn't marry up," I finished, my voice low and steady. "You tied yourself to my success. I've carried this family's weight quietly for years, without applause, without recognition." I lifted my glass, eyes meeting theirs one by one. "And I'm done pretending I'm just the extra at your table. I'm the reason this dinner has even happened." And no one argued, not one word. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider at that table. I felt like the one keeping it upright. But Victoria wasn't finished. She straightened in her seat, adjusting her scarf like she was bracing for battle. "If all this is true," she said slowly, her voice sharp, "then why do you live so comfortably? Isn't Lily the one carrying you?" Lily stayed frozen. But Nicole gasped, and Grace blinked like she couldn't believe her ears. Victoria folded her hands, leaning in like a lawyer making her closing argument. "You wear fine clothes, drive an executive sedan, never look stressed. That comes from my daughter's hard work." I laughed, not from humor, but because it was pathetic. "You really believe that?" I turned my chair slightly toward Lily. "Want to tell them where the 25% down payment came from?" She said nothing. "Lily," I pressed, calm but firm now. "Tell her." Silence. I exhaled. "All right, then I'll do it." I looked back at Victoria. Every dollar came from my early trades. I bought that house before Lily's studio even had its first customer. She didn't tell you because she wanted to look independent. And I let her because I loved her. Lily lowered her head, looking like she wished the floor would swallow her. "But if we're rewriting history here, let's get it straight," I continued. "I financed her brand, paid for the build-out, signed the lease under my LLC so she could qualify." Nicole whispered under her breath. Grace's eyes widened. "And all of that," I said. "I never used it against you. Until now." Victoria sat back like I'd slapped her. She tried to recover, as always. "Money isn't everything. What matters is who shows up, who holds this family together." "You mean you?" I asked. She didn't answer. I leaned forward, voice no longer calm. "You humiliated me tonight. You staged this gathering to cut me down." But it backfired. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't think she'd actually keep you out." I turned to her. "So you knew?" "I thought she'd calm down," Lily muttered, eyes on the tablecloth. "She told me you wouldn't like it anyway, that it was more for the girls." "Right," I said bitterly, "because nothing bonds sisters like stabbing a husband in the back with a linen napkin." The champagne sat untouched. The plates were cold. The entire mood had collapsed. "This dinner wasn't about food," I said, rising. "It was about clarity." Lily finally met my eyes. I held her gaze, not angry, just tired. "I'd already decided to walk away," I said quietly. "Tonight just confirmed it." Victoria's voice shook. "What do you mean?" "It means this little performance wasn't the beginning of anything. It was the end." Lily's eyes filled with tears. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. "I'm done here." "You're bluffing," Victoria spat. "No," I said flatly. "I'm done." I scanned their faces one last time. "I gave you all the chances, and you proved me right to leave." Then I walked out. No shouting, no dramatics, just truth. Behind me, silence. They knew they hadn't just pushed me too far. They'd lost the one person who'd given more than they ever deserved. The drive back was quiet. No radio, no calls. My hands steady on the wheel, eyes forward. It was finished. At home, I parked in the driveway instead of the garage, a small decision but deliberate. Inside, the air still carried the sweet trace of the vanilla scent diffuser Lily loved. I didn't bother with lights. Straight to the office. I opened the bottom drawer, keyed the safe, and pulled out contracts, records, and equity agreements tied to Lily's studio. It was registered in her name, yes, but the paperwork gave me 60% ownership. I laid the folder on the desk, photographed every page, and backed them up to both the cloud and an external drive. Nothing was staying behind. From the closet, I grabbed my black travel bag. Packy. Cared only what mattered. Some clothes, laptop, passport, watch, the charger she always borrowed. I left half the closet full on purpose. This wasn't sneaking away. This was walking out. I set the bag by the door and sat on the couch, waited. Around 11:15, the key turned. Lily walked in, heels clicking against the tile. She dropped her bag on the entry table, kicked off her shoes like nothing had happened. Then she saw me sitting in the dark and jumped. Michael, what the hell? I didn't move. Hey. Her eyes darted to the black travel bag. What are you doing? I stood slowly. I'm leaving. She froze, staring at me, then the bag. You're serious? I was serious when I said it at dinner. I thought you were just mad, that you needed to cool off. I shook my head slowly. Lily, I've been cooling off for 4 years. You just never noticed. She folded her arms, trying to stay steady. So what? That's it? You're walking out because of one bad dinner? A bitter laugh escaped me. One bad dinner? You sat there while your mother mocked me in public and you said nothing. You let her exclude me from a night I paid for half of inside a restaurant I helped build. She told me you weren't going to come, Lily said defensively. She told me it was just for the girls. I didn't know. Stop. My voice cut sharp. You've always known what kind of woman Victoria is. You just let her set the stage. Her eyes dropped. So, now what? You just leave? I picked up the black travel bag. I already have. She stared at me, anger flashing. You'll regret this. No, I said calmly. You will. You think you'll be fine without me? She scoffed. I set the suitcase by the door and pulled out a folded paper from my jacket, a signed summary of her studio's ownership split. I hold 60%, I said, lifting it up. Her face drained. What? You wanted a loan. I gave you equity. You sigged. Net it twice, remember? You never read the fine print, and I never used it against you. Until now. She stepped forward. Michael, I'm not letting you take my business. I'm not taking anything. I'm just not protecting it anymore. You wanted separate lives? Fine. Separate it is. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. I opened the door. Goodbye, Lily. I didn't slam it. I didn't need to. I walked out carrying the one thing they never thought I would, control. By morning, chaos had already begun. 15 missed calls. 4 from Lily, 7 from Victoria, the rest from numbers I didn't know. I ignored them. Texts followed. Lily, we need to talk. Please. Lily, tell me you're not serious. You can't do this. Lily, you don't even care about the studio. Then came Victoria's blunt attack. You're a disgrace. You embarrassed this family. You won't get away with it. I laughed out loud at that. An hour later, a call flashed from a fancy downtown law firm, one known for cleaning up rich kids' messes. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted my attorney, an old friend I'd helped years ago. Me. Time to trigger the exit plan. Studio clause goes live. His reply came instantly, already drafting the memo. Let them make the first move. That was the part Victoria never understood. She thought wealth meant big names, flashy dinners, empty bragging. But real power came from silence, from contracts, from preparation. By noon, Lily tried guilt. My employees are scared. Don't punish them for us. I never thought you'd turn into this person. You promised me forever. I had, back when forever meant something. That afternoon, Victoria stormed into the studio, telling staff she was handling everything. She didn't realize an employee had already shared my signed ownership documents. By evening, 2 of Lily's most loyal staff resigned. Foot traffic slowed to a crawl. I wasn't sabotaging her. I didn't have to. Word spread quickly once people realized the truth, that the golden girl everyone raised had built her empire on someone else's foundation. Lily tried one last card. Let's avoid court. Let's be adults. I sent her a photo of the investor agreement. Her signature sat right beside mine. The 60-40 split, circled in red. She never replied. Her lawyer finally reached mine the next day, floating renegotiation. My attorney didn't even write a draft. He simply sent them the clause. Ownership was non-revocable in divorce. Case closed. A few days later, I got a call from a leasing office downtown. The luxury condo Lily and I had almost rented 2 years ago before Victoria convinced her it was too much. They didn't know I'd bought it quietly later, under my own name. When I arrived, the front desk smiled. "Mr. Carter, your keys are ready." That evening, I stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, glass of scotch in hand, scrolling through one last voicemail from Victoria. "This isn't over. You need us more than you think." I smiled to myself. That was the twist she'd never grasp. I didn't need them. They needed me. And now, they were on their own. The city moved below me, alive, rushing. Up here, just silence. The divorce was finalized soon after. Clean break. No alimony. No shared assets. My attorney made sure the studio equity documents couldn't be touched. Lily didn't even fight them in the end. Maybe she knew dragging it out would only make her fall harder. I left her the house, the furniture, even the designer dinner set Victoria once insisted on for appearances. I signed off everything that wasn't worth the headache and kept what mattered, my investments, my portfolio, my dignity. A few days later, Daniel Brooks called. "You finally cut loose," he said, not hiding his relief. "Cut what loose?" I asked. "The anchor. Honestly, I'm surprised you lasted with that family as long as you did." I laughed. You and me both. But he wasn't just calling to reminisce. He had an offer, a new whiskey lounge project in Riverbend. "You helped me open my first 3, he said. "Let's build one for you this time." I didn't hesitate. "Send me the specs. Let's make it happen." That same week, Victoria tried calling again. I let it ring out, then blocked her. The next day, she tried from her sister's phone. Blocked that too. I wasn't interested in fake olive branches dipped in poison. That bridge wasn't just burned, it was bulldozed. Then Lily texted, "Can we talk?" 3 words. No apology, no explanation, no context. I stared at it for a few seconds, then locked my phone face down on the patio table. Not everything needs an answer. A week later, a finance alert buzzed. The studio had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Not a shock. Without the systems I'd set up, the suppliers, payroll, tax structures, it was just a pretty storefront with no spine. I didn't cheer, but I did feel free. For years, I had been the quiet safety net. The nice husband, left off group chats, expected to wait in the car. Not anymore. Now when I walked into a room, it was on my terms. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the man who built everything himself, and walked away when it no longer served him. The man who didn't beg for a seat at their table when he could buy the building next door. One quiet Sunday morning, coffee in hand, I skimmed the Riverbend Chronicle. Buried in the business section was the headline, "Richard Hale steps down as senior partner of Prescott Capital amid restructuring." I clicked fast. The article was bland corporate language. Undisclosed financial challenges. Temporary leadership change. But I knew the truth. I knew the exact loan he couldn't cover. The one refinanced 2 years ago. The one I had quietly floated while Richard scrambled with credit cards to keep the firm alive. Without me, there was no lifeline. And now, There was no firm. I set the phone down and leaned back. The city moved below me, alive, rushing. Up here, just silence. They thought they could write me out of their story, reduce me to a footnote in Lily's curated life. But they forgot something crucial. I had the pen the whole time. I had written checks with no name attached, signed contracts no one else bothered to read, sat through years of shallow gratitude, waiting for someone to truly see me. They never did. So I stopped waiting and rewrote my life. Not out of revenge, not even anger. Out of self-respect. I didn't burn their house down. I just stopped patching the leaks. And when the walls collapsed, they finally learned what I was worth. Not because I shouted, but because I walked away. Another vibration. A text from Lily. I didn't know he was stepping down. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled. No reply. She still didn't get it. This was never about being kept in the loop. It was about drawing my own circle. Wider, higher, mine. That was the real legacy. Not the money, not the ownership. Freedom. The final word. Mine.